So, for totally no reason at all, I've been thinking a lot about the apocalypse lately. Christians are kind of obsessed with the end days, and I think it's really weird that Episcopalians aren't. I mean, it sort of tracks with our mentality in most things. Like Jesus said, go into the world and tell everyone you meet the good news. And the Episcopalians kind of said, but we don't want to impose Jesus. But it seems like everyone else, at least in American Christianity, is like really into it. Not only blockbuster disaster movies, but like the actual factual genuine end of times that is described in the book of Revelation. And that fascination with the apocalypse goes way back. When the Anglicans sort of first came to the colonized Americas, they viewed that as their duty for three reasons. I got my good old-fashioned history of the Episcopal Church right here. They felt like they had to preach the gospel to the Native Americans and importantly beat the Catholics to it. But they also felt, and this is my favorite part, is this thinking that if they could only convert the natives, it would speed up the coming of God's kingdom. And whether or not that refers to some sort of worldwide Christian nationalist thing or the actual end times isn't really clear here. But I think the fact that I can't tell the difference is also very telling. Christianity really doesn't seem to have decided if the apocalypse is a good thing or not. Like some media, some Christian media, is of the opinion that the apocalypse is bad because humanity is worth keeping. But it's sort of surprising to realize how strong for enthusiasm for the apocalypse is. Like when the US moved their Israeli embassy to Jerusalem, a lot of Christians really did think it was a sign. The book of Revelation is a suggested reading exactly 8 times in the lectionary, mostly around the Sundays after Easter. I think that that's not nearly enough for a book that is so bonkers and that plays such a big role in contemporary American Christianity. And I don't really have a grand conclusion to come to. They only gave me like 2 minutes for this. But I think we should talk about it more. It's been on my mind.
Hi everyone, my name is Emil Massad, and I am a graduating senior. Graduating senior has a lot of meaning behind it. Right now, it means time to me. It means time left before I go off to college. It means time that I have with my friends from high school and from St. Columba's. It means time that I've lost to the pandemic and that I'm trying to regain right now. And as I've been thinking about time, a passage came to me that we read a couple years ago in J2A or Yak, and it's Ecclesiastes 3, A Time for Everything. And I figured I'd read it and then talk about what that means to me now and as I'm going off to college. There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, and a time for war and a time for peace. And this has meant 2 things to me. It stuck with me ever since we read it that first time in Sunday school. It's meant comfort, and it also means hope. And it means comfort in the sense that whatever action I'm doing, that is warranted. There's a time for that. There's a time for studying and catching up on schoolwork. And there is a time for doing something else that's better for my mental health. Maybe it's a time for playing music or a time for watching a movie with friends. Everything is warranted, and that's comforting. There's a time for everything that you feel you need to do. If I don't want to do my schoolwork right now and I need some time to myself to relax, there's a time for that. And that's comforting. It helps me feel reassured and feel ready to do whatever activities I need to do, whether that's homework or preparing for the concert or anything. There's a time for everything. On the flip side, for hope, it's hope in terms of my own relationship with religion. I talked at the start of this year about my relationship with God through my faith story and how it was hard for me to embrace or relate with a God that I couldn't necessarily hear or see or interact with. And this passage reassures me that religion takes time. Religion is not something you get right off the bat, and religion is something you need to develop over a long period of time. I've heard so many members of the congregation tell that same story through their first faith stories, and how, maybe in college they took a step away from religion, or after an event they took a step away and then came back later on. And it just takes time. And for me, that's true. As I take time to think about my relationship in the church and my time in the St. Columba's community, my relationship with God is progressing over time. It might not be there now, but it's getting there. And so that's what St. Columba's has taught me. It's taught me that there is time. It's given me time to be skeptical of my relationship with God, and it's given me time to celebrate it. It's given me time to criticize what the Bible says while also learning to embrace it and to read it and to revere it. And for anybody that has kids going to St. Columba's and going to Sunday school, I hope that they find the same thing. And so as I go on to college, I know that there's going to be a time for everything. There's going to be a time for studying late at night. There's going to be a time for going out with friends. There's going to be a time for just taking some time by myself. There's also going to be a time for me to go to church and a time for me to maybe step away. And that's okay. There's a time for everything. And that's what St. Columba's taught me. And as I go through my relationship, as I try to progress, as I try to develop my relationship with God, I will find those times to speak and to be silent, to find and search and to give up, to laugh and dance and to mourn and cry. And especially time to plant and time to uproot. Plant myself here in St. Columba's as I've done for the past many years, and uproot from a community that I love and move on to college. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. Thank you.